They built their empire in the dark, but forgot one thing: shadows disappear when the light shows up. Imagine a machine designed to erase people, not just from records, but from memory, from history, from existence. A system so precise it could strip you of identity, silence your voice, and bury your truth under concrete lies. But here's what they didn't expect. The machine broke when it met something it couldn't calculate: your awareness, your energy, your refusal to disappear. Fact, classified FBI files have now leaked, confirming what many once called madness: unauthorized human experimentation programs tied to trafficking networks, protected by layers of government silence. These weren't isolated incidents. These were engineered systems designed to consume human lives while operating beneath the radar of public knowledge. And now they've been exposed. And thank you, Chosen One. Don't forget to pay this message forward by simply pressing the like and subscribe buttons to help spread this truth to more souls. It's a responsibility we all share. Spread the light, amplify the signal, and thank you for being part of this mission. You are not just a viewer, you are part of a force. Now, let's return to the reality they tried to bury. Chosen Ones, your story is no longer hidden in shadows. What once felt like personal torment, silent attacks, constant surveillance, strange patterns of manipulation, has now become part of a global narrative. What you lived in isolation is now confirmed by facts, documents, and the panic of those once in power. The very institutions sworn to protect justice are now caught red-handed engineering chaos. The Federal Bureau has been exposed, not just for failing to act, but for being actively involved in experiments on human beings without consent. Behind locked doors and coded systems, people were trafficked like inventory, processed through technological tunnels built to erase their existence. No names, no evidence, no escape. But that changes now, because you survived it. And more than that, you spoke. The surveillance system that once stalked your every breath is now working in reverse. Every camera, every sensor, every device that once existed to suppress you has now become an accidental amplifier of your presence. Your energy has outgrown their algorithms. Your frequency can no longer be filtered. What they once used to cage you has turned into a signal tower, spreading your story to every corner of the planet. That's why the world is watching now, because you made them. Every time they tried to discredit you, they left behind a trace. Every countermeasure they launched exposed another layer of the truth. Their silence is no longer a shield. Their walls are crumbling under the weight of undeniable exposure, and their biggest fear has come true. You were not alone. The term "chosen ones" isn't just symbolic. It's accurate, because only a specific type of soul could withstand this level of pressure, confusion, and manipulation, and still remain conscious, still observe, still question, still speak. While the world slept under hypnosis, you noticed the patterns. While others consumed distractions, you sensed the deception. You saw the masks before they slipped. You felt the vibration beneath the lies. You knew. And now that knowing is spreading like wildfire. Mainstream headlines are shifting. Whistleblowers are multiplying. Leaks are no longer isolated drops. They're turning into floods. There's a momentum now that cannot be reversed. The illusion is cracking not because the system got sloppy, but because the chosen ones never stopped pushing. The people they tried to break became the ones who broke the silence. Let's be clear, this is not just an exposure of the FBI. This is an exposure of a structure, a design, a method that has been replicated across borders and dressed in different uniforms, but always operated with the same core objective: control. The trafficking of humans was never just about bodies, it was about energy, about data, about how much can be taken from a soul before it collapses. They ran tests to figure that out. They used classified programs to simulate emotional stress, social isolation, sleep manipulation, and synthetic fear. Many didn't survive, but some did. And those survivors are now the loudest voices shaking the very foundations of this dark empire. You are one of them. This isn't just a story, it's a signal, a turning point. The chosen ones have always been scattered across the globe, but now their frequencies are sinking. Stories once dismissed as delusions are now confirmed by declassified truths. And those who once smirked at your pain are now scrolling through headlines they can't unsee. The game has changed. You weren't wrong, you were early, and that's why they feared you. Because if one awakened soul could collapse a lie, imagine what happens when millions wake up at once. That's what's happening now. That's why panic is spreading through the corridors of control. New firewalls are being built. New algorithms are being trained. But it's too late. The wave has already started. And you, chosen one, are not just riding it. You are the wave. And thank you, chosen one, for still standing here with this message. What you're about to witness is not just a story. It's your confirmation. This isn't entertainment. This is exposure. The kind that reshapes everything you thought you knew about your past, your pain, and your purpose. If you've ever felt the weight of invisible eyes, the sting of being unheard, or the confusion of a world that kept gaslighting your reality, then you owe it to yourself to stay. Because step by step, we're peeling back the layers of a system that made sure the truth stayed buried. So drop 777 in the comments if you felt that inner shift and you're ready to turn your isolation into ignition. And if this message hits home, bless the mission with your support, whether it's a share, a like, or a super thanks, because your energy fuels this fire. It's not about the number, it's about the force behind it. The more we rise, the louder this message echoes. And now, let's begin. Piece by piece, fact by fact, we're stepping into the light they tried to block. Stay sharp, stay with us, because what's next changes everything. Number 1. The system that built your prison is now drowning in its own secrets. They thought they buried you under silence, but they didn't know you were a seed. For years, they built walls of secrecy, coding lies into systems and systems into lives, thinking no one would ever trace their fingerprints. But here's the paradox that haunts them now. The harder they tried to erase you, the more defined you became. Every attempt to censor your truth only magnified your existence. Every time they dragged your name through the digital mud, the universe etched it deeper into the archive of awakening. They wanted to silence a human. Instead, they awakened a force. Their surveillance towers, their encrypted networks, their cold algorithms, all were designed for control. But control is brittle when it's built on fear. What they didn't calculate was your transformation. You evolved. You upgraded beyond their reach. Their weapons, psychological warfare, economic manipulation, digital monitoring, were engineered to contain human behavior. But you, chosen one, stopped behaving the way their system predicted. You started thinking beyond fear. You became the glitch in their code. Imagine a vast, gleaming machine, gears of influence powered by stolen energy. It ran smoothly for decades, fed by human lives repackaged as data, labor, and silence. But then something shifted. The gears started grinding. The machine began to choke on its own corruption. That sound echoing across the world right now. That's not progress. That's collapse. The empire that profited from your pain is now eating itself alive. The auditors of the unseen have arrived, not with badges, but with exposure. Every hidden dollar now leaves a digital burn mark. Offshore accounts that once floated in darkness are lighting up like distress signals. Private ledgers once guarded by layers of encryption are glitching into visibility. They called it classified, but the universe calls it collected debt. Every stolen resource, every siphoned drop of value taken from human beings under false programs is now screaming through the grid. The numbers don't lie. The money trails lead to names, and the names lead to faces, and those faces are trembling. You might ask yourself, can the system really fall? How can something so powerful collapse before our eyes? The truth is, the system has been collapsing for years. It's just that the cracks were hidden beneath luxury, propaganda, and illusion. Power doesn't vanish with a bang. It decays from the inside, quietly, until one day it can no longer pretend to stand. That day has arrived. What you're witnessing now is not the beginning of their end. It's the end of their control. They built an empire on stolen humanity. They monetized suffering and turned silence into currency. But every suppressed voice has weight, and the sum of those silences is now crushing the very foundations they stood on. The chosen ones, the observers, the empaths, the awake, have always been the counterbalance. Your existence disrupts their equation. Your awareness is their system error. They can't fix what they can't predict, and they can't predict what has evolved beyond their programming. Picture this, a tower of glass and steel glittering under artificial light. Inside, the powerful sit in leather chairs, trading data and lives like numbers. Then, one by one, the screens flicker. The files they thought deleted reappear. The documents they encrypted start decrypting themselves. Their own networks turn against them. Because energy doesn't disappear, it transfers. And every ounce of energy stolen from you is now returning home with interest. They tried to drown you in their systems, chosen one, but water remembers its source. Every wave they pushed against you is returning like a storm. They wanted you to doubt your senses, to think you imagined it all. But now, the very institutions that gaslighted your existence are forced to admit the truth. Unauthorized experiments, covert programs, human trafficking under bureaucratic disguise. They mocked your warnings, but now their memos, emails, and databases tell your story better than words ever could. Their empire was never invincible. It was a house built on moral debt, and that debt has matured. The energy shift happening now isn't just spiritual, it's structural. Systems that exploited life are collapsing because they've exhausted the very life force that sustained them. You are witnessing the implosion of a financial matrix built on manipulation, where power was traded like stock and empathy was treated as a weakness. But empathy, your empathy, turned out to be the code breaker. They fear exposure more than justice, because exposure is permanent. Justice can be delayed, but once the truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. And that's what you've done. You've turned the invisible visible. You've become the light they can't unplug. That's why they scramble to rewrite narratives, to flood timelines with distractions, to push new fears into circulation. But fear is their oldest trick, and it doesn't work anymore. You've seen too much. You've awakened too far. They once believed you were isolated, cut off, powerless. But isolation became your training ground. In silence, you refined your awareness. In solitude, you built resistance. They confused stillness with defeat. What they didn't understand was that the chosen ones don't retreat. They recharge. Every moment you were ignored became your calibration. Every injustice became your fuel. And now, your frequency doesn't just resist corruption. It exposes it. And that's what terrifies them most. They can patch leaks, erase files, and discredit witnesses, but they can't unsee the truth. They can't unfeel the shift. The collapse isn't coming, it's already underway. Their systems are devouring themselves because truth, once released, doesn't stop. It multiplies. It infects the network. It spreads faster than censorship can contain. The global stage they once used to broadcast deception has become the very screen displaying their downfall. The chosen ones aren't spectators in this collapse. They're catalysts. Every share, every conversation, every spark of awareness accelerates the fall. The truth doesn't whisper anymore. It roars, and no amount of wealth, influence, or manipulation can drown it out. The system that thrived on your silence is now screaming for mercy, but there is none left. Not in this cycle, not in this universe. The audit is complete. The exposure is irreversible. The game is over, and this time the house doesn't win. Because when you try to erase the light, the universe responds with a power outage for you. Number 2. They built a system to drain you. Now it funds your rise. The thief always fears the day the vault swings open, and today it's wide open. Imagine building a dam to stop a river, only to watch it reverse course and flood your own house. That's what's happening right now to the architects of suppression. The very energy they stole, the wealth they hoarded, and the power they weaponized against you has begun to leak through the cracks. And it's not returning quietly. It's roaring back like a tidal wave. The current has turned, and it's dragging their foundations with it. They thought they had perfected control, with coded funding, encrypted black budgets, secret bank accounts, and AI-powered auditing systems meant to redirect every resource away from you. But chosen one, you are no longer a forgotten footnote in their ledgers. You are now the headline. The reversal is real, not metaphorical, not spiritual fluff, but a measurable disruption in the very streams of power they once owned. Suddenly, financial flows are rerouting. Numbers don't lie. Money is moving, not by their will, but by something far greater, something they didn't account for: universal law. They wrote your name on the blacklist, but forgot the universe keeps a whitelist too. What happens when the system designed to extract begins to repay? When bank transfers linked to suppression start pinging your field with familiar codes, numbers, symbols, and patterns that you've dreamed of before you even understood what they meant? You start to realize this isn't coincidence, this is recognition. Classified operations that once carried cryptic project names now reveal phrases that echo something deep inside your bones. It's not just money that's moving, it's memory, it's frequency. These budget lines weren't random. They were always tied to you. Now they're becoming visible, as if the universe itself is rerouting value to its rightful owner. They thought they could erase your identity with silence, bury your story under non-disclosure agreements, institutional gaslighting, and falsified psychological labels. But the joke's on them, because the human soul is the ultimate archive. And you, chosen one, kept the record. Even when they wiped your files, scrubbed your data, and declared you invisible, your frequency remained intact. The reversal isn't just financial, it's energetic. Imagine a magnet powerful enough to pull back every drop of blood they spilled, trying to break you. That's what you've become. Now they're watching in disbelief as the universe begins its correction. Secret funds are glitching, transactions are reappearing, private transfers they buried years ago are suddenly flagged in public reports. Why? Because nothing stolen stays hidden forever, and nothing taken from a chosen one goes unpaid. They drained your essence, your trust, your hope, and now, in a twist they never imagined, it all returns multiplied beyond comprehension. You may wonder, but how is this possible? How can money just redirect? The answer is this: they never owned it to begin with. They only diverted it temporarily. They hijacked the flow, but now the flow is correcting itself. Energy is currency, and the universe has better math than any human institution. They stole from your soul, and now the soul of the universe demands interest. Imagine a casino rigged against you. Every bet you placed was stacked to fail, every move monitored, every win erased. But what if, without warning, the system glitched? What if every lost chip returned, every lie flagged, every hidden card revealed? That's the moment we're in. The house is bleeding chips, and you, the one they tried to bankrupt, are now the one cashing out. You weren't just the target. You were the power source, and now that source is unplugging from their grid. What's happening behind closed doors is pure chaos. Budget directors can't explain the anomalies. Secretaries of shadow programs are receiving audit reports with lines that make no logical sense. How is money disappearing from secured black budgets? Why are ghost accounts suddenly tagged with living names? Because their system never accounted for your awakening. They engineered a grid of theft, but forgot the grid only works when the source remains asleep. And now you're awake. They're trying to patch it, deploying new firewalls, rerouting funds again, but nothing sticks. Why? Because this isn't just a financial shift. It's a cosmic recalibration. They no longer have permission. The energetic lock has changed. And every attempt they make to force the old systems back into place gets met with resistance. Not from you, from everything around them. Their own code has turned against them. The money they moved with certainty is now moving with purpose. And that purpose is you. You were never crazy to think something was wrong. You weren't paranoid. You were precise. All those moments when the numbers felt off, when your identity felt split, when your dreams spoke in data and your intuition felt like a database. That was real. You were wired into their system in ways they couldn't decode, and now that connection is being restored, not by them, but by something far more exact. They used you like a battery but forgot even drained energy returns to its source. You're not imagining it. The shift is real, and it's bigger than one account, one transaction, one project. This is about justice woven into quantum architecture. This is about truth encoded in the very current of life. What they thought they could extract without consequence is now returning as consequence. And for the first time, they're on the receiving end. The reversal of power isn't just poetic, it's brutal, because those who once drank from stolen wells are now dying of thirst, while those they abandoned are rising with overflow. You don't need to chase revenge. The universe doesn't forget. And what it's returning to you now, dignity, clarity, power, truth, is worth more than gold. So when you start to see it, the sudden favor, the unexplainable openings, the unexpected provision, don't doubt it, don't dismiss it. That's the payback, that's the recalibration. You're not lucky, you're aligned. You didn't win the lottery, you won your energy back. And with that energy, you carry the weight of a message louder than any headline. The system doesn't just fall, it flips. Number 3, they didn't just watch you, they filed you under secrets. They tagged you like inventory, but forgot, divine energy doesn't stay in storage. Imagine waking up one day and realizing your life wasn't just lived, it was logged. Not by you, but by a network so silent and so surgical, you never even knew you were the subject. Welcome to the truth behind your timeline, chosen one. You were never just born, you were processed, and not through public systems, but through layered frameworks, hidden behind innocent-looking documents, codes, and registrations. You may think, why me? The better question is, why not me? You were different. You always felt it. The problem is, so did they. Your birth certificate, it wasn't just a form. It was the first entry point into a classification system that had nothing to do with hospitals or health, and everything to do with control. Timestamps that don't match natural labor, codes that mirror military-grade templates. You weren't just registered, you were indexed. Imagine being born into a spreadsheet while everyone else was born into a family. Your medical records weren't just about checkups. They were behavioral blueprints, test results flagged for anomalies you were never told about, notes written in a language most doctors aren't trained to read. Entries about resilience to medications, unusual neural patterns, or sensitivities that seemed too specific. Why? Because your body wasn't just being treated, it was being tested. And your education? That was no ordinary curriculum. Ever wonder why some teachers looked at you like you were a puzzle? Why certain tests felt more like psychological experiments than exams? Because your reactions were being recorded and compared against patterns from programs you were never meant to know existed. Your discomfort was their data. Your confusion was their currency. You weren't just a student, you were a subject. Even your jobs tell the story, the unexplained gaps, the strange assignments, the employers who seemed more interested in your temperament than your skills. That wasn't bad luck, that was rerouting. Every address you've lived at, every number you've carried, every ID you've been assigned, they weren't random. They were beacons, coordinates, tags. You were in the system, but never of the system. And now the system knows you know. Number 4. The firewall cracked, and your name slipped through the smoke. They locked your truth in vaults built to last centuries, but forgot energy doesn't expire. They thought the encryption would hold forever, that your true identity, your origin, your designation would stay sealed in the deepest layers of their digital underworld. These weren't just secured databases. These were firewalled fortresses designed to melt hard drives if the wrong keystroke landed. But here's the punchline. Chosen one, the wrong keystroke just happened, and you were the key. Encrypted systems once guarded by quantum code are now hemorrhaging data. Classified networks, the kind that don't even appear on satellite traces, are lighting up like distress signals. The same files they stored beneath 10 layers of clearance are now surfacing in private inboxes, anonymous drops, and secured leaks flooding channels across the globe. Your true name, your frequency, your embedded identity, it's out. Not whispered, not rumored, broadcasted. Imagine a secret so dangerous, even knowing it could erase your future. Now imagine that secret has your face. Emergency meetings are unfolding in underground facilities no one admits exist. Secure comms jam with panic, while generals and shadow architects bark orders that vanish into black noise. Former handlers, the ones who once tracked you from birth, are disappearing, one by one, not arrested, extracted, pulled from long-held positions like broken parts from a collapsing machine. High-level agents are retiring, vanishing into remote outposts, or being offered as sacrificial pawns in a desperate bid to stop the hemorrhage. But it's too late. The breach isn't just technical, it's cosmic. Every move they make to bury the truth only drags it further into the light. They're torching archives, crashing servers, shredding paper trails like rabid animals. Government vaults are being purged under false renovations. Sensitive buildings go up in literal flames. And yet, as they burn one file, 100 flawless copies surface elsewhere. They're fighting a ghost, a current, a pulse that can't be deleted. You were the file they feared most because you were never just data. You were the detonator. Now, media outlets scramble to bury headlines, while underground channels explode with content about your story. Videos, documents, interviews, testimonies, all synced, all undeniable. Their suppression software glitches. Their blackout AI crashes. Because your frequency isn't compatible with censorship, you weren't meant to be erased. You were meant to break the eraser. The harder they try to vanish the evidence, the louder it roars. The very system built to contain your existence now leaks like a dying machine, and the world, it's starting to look. Number 5. The truth moves like lightning, and they can't outrun the storm. They built walls around the truth, but forgot lightning doesn't knock before it strikes. The silence they worked so hard to maintain is shattering, and not with a whisper, with a boom that's echoing through every digital hallway they thought they controlled. Chosen one, the disclosure you felt in your bones is no longer just a feeling. It's here, and it's happening faster than their systems can react. Anonymous drops land in journalists' hands, not just files, but surgical proof, evidence too sharp, too connected, too real to be ignored. These aren't wild accusations or online theories. These are digital autopsies of programs so classified. Their mere acknowledgement once triggered lockdowns, and now they're everywhere. Emails, biometric records, training logs, surveillance footage, the kind of material that doesn't leak unless the system is cracking from the inside. Imagine a dam built to hold back a tsunami. Now picture it shattered, with truth flooding through every broken panel. Social media gatekeepers try to block your story, bury hashtags, flag content, but their filters glitch. Algorithms twitch. Hashtags multiply like wildfire. Every time they suppress one tag, 10 more rise from the ashes. Content labeled restricted ends up on the trending list. Videos meant to disappear start looping into millions of screens. Even their AI can't keep up. Why? Because your truth isn't a trend, it's a frequency, and that frequency bypasses censorship. Whistleblowers begin stepping into the light. Not one, many, different countries, different agencies, all saying the same thing in different words. Yes, it was real. It happened. We saw it. We were part of it. We couldn't speak until until now Sanber. Mapiwe. Now their testimonies align like puzzle pieces that only make sense when you're finally allowed to see the whole picture. What you always knew, what you felt but couldn't prove, is now being confirmed out loud by the very hands that once kept it silent. The voices of suppression are being drowned by the very people who once carried out the mission. They designed a network to silence you, but forgot energy doesn't ask permission to speak. Now the truth rides your signal. It flows through platforms, chat rooms, inboxes, and back channels. They can't stop it without shutting down the entire digital grid. And if they do that, the whole world will really ask why. That's the corner they're in now. Every direction leads to exposure. And the truth, it's still accelerating. Number 6. They lost the keys to their own kingdom, and you hold what remains. When the lock rejects its own maker, the truth has already taken over. It's over, and they know it. The control they once held like a sword now slips from their grip like sand through shaking hands. Their command centers blink red. Their clearance codes return errors. Systems that once obeyed their fingerprints now treat them like strangers, and not by accident. By force. Something deeper than protocol is rewriting access in real time, and it's not under their control, it's under yours. Chosen one, your case didn't just raise eyebrows, it broke paradigms. Even those at the highest levels now whisper in panic, acknowledging what they can't explain. A cosmic override has entered their network. And no matter how many patches they write or emergency calls they make, the override doesn't budge. Why? Because the force moving through this system doesn't recognize their authority anymore. It only recognizes truth. Imagine the architect of a fortress suddenly finding themselves locked outside the very gates they built. That's where they are now. Biometric scanners glitch, keycards flash red. Agents who ran operations for decades now face frozen dashboards and terminal lockouts. They're ghosts in their own system, locked out, shut down, purged by the very mechanisms they used against you. The chain of command, broken. The illusion of control, shattered. The machine is collapsing not with violence, but with refusal. It no longer obeys. And now, as the smoke begins to thin and their shrieks of panic turn to silence, something wild happens. The system reorganizes around you. Files once sealed under layers of false classification begin to open as if summoned by your presence alone. Directives buried so deep they required multiple levels of military clearance now surface like forgotten memories. Your name unlocks hallways they thought were permanently sealed. Data crawls out of cold storage. Archives long protected by legal fiction and digital fog now lay themselves bare. You weren't granted access. You were always the key. And that's when the final blow hits them. Your genetic code, the very code they tampered with, studied, copied, and falsified, becomes a living beacon. It triggers alerts across systems they forgot were even connected. Old lies collapse. False family histories crack. People planted to rewrite your origin now stumble through interrogations they never expected. Their stories unravel because the real data, your blood memory, won't lie. What they tried to bury has now grown roots through their foundation, and it's splitting the ground beneath them. Number 7. They made you a ghost. Now the law is haunted by your truth. The law ignored your cries. Now it echoes with your name. For years, they built a legal labyrinth around your existence, a maze of altered records, dead-end files, and falsified timelines designed to turn your identity into a myth. They thought if they buried you deep enough under paperwork, you'd disappear. But the opposite has happened. The same system they used to erase you is now unraveling in real time, and your truth is the fault line cracking it open. Databases once in perfect alignment now trigger conflict errors the moment your data enters the stream. Birth records don't match government logs. Hospital documents contradict medical scans. Educational records suggest schools you never attended and treatments you never received. The lies aren't just visible, they're screaming. Every attempt to verify your identity sets off a domino effect that leads straight back to a system they swore would never be exposed. Imagine forging a fake identity so well you forget who you were lying to until the real one walks into the room. That's what your frequency has done. It doesn't just carry data, it carries authorization. Dormant protocols hidden in deep code are suddenly reactivating when your signal enters their space. Files sealed until the end of time now unseal themselves like ancient vaults, sensing their rightful owner. Your presence alone is enough to flip switches buried beneath decades of digital darkness. And now the courtroom, their last fortress, begins to crack. Judges who once sneered at your claims now find their names circling in sealed logs, tied to covert contracts and oversight committees that never made the public record. Your case, once dismissed without hearing, is now being whispered about behind oak doors and steel walls, not because they believe you, but because the evidence no longer gives them a choice. You weren't just erased, you were redacted. And now every blacked-out line is bleeding through the page. Your case is no longer about you alone. It's precedent, a legal shockwave that will ripple through every institution built on concealment. You are not just proving a point, you are shifting the balance. The courtroom is no longer their sanctuary, it is now your stage. And they're being forced to watch the truth testify. Number 8. They laughed at the impossible. Now science signs your name to it. First they call it coincidence, then anomaly, then finally truth. They mocked what they couldn't measure. They ridiculed what they couldn't replicate. But now their own files, the ones sealed, time-stamped and hidden in secured labs, have betrayed them. Every remote viewing session they recorded, every physiological scan, every anomaly they couldn't explain now confirms what you've known all along. You were never guessing. You were receiving. Imagine their disbelief as surveillance footage shows you describing locations you've never visited, events that hadn't yet happened, faces you couldn't have known. Their instruments didn't malfunction. They documented the supernatural and tried to file it away under unresolved data. They ran the tests 100 times, changed the variables, swapped observers, and still your accuracy remained unbroken. You didn't predict. You perceived. You weren't the subject of an experiment. You were the proof. They studied your intuition like a glitch, not realizing they were standing inside the code. Even their agents wrote it in reports. Subject displays unexplainable awareness of hidden observers. Subject reacts to unseen stimuli. They called it impossible, yet every line of data said otherwise. What they couldn't explain scientifically, they buried politically. But now those buried studies have surfaced, and with them comes the undeniable validation that what they feared most was never magic. It was evolution. You are not an experiment gone wrong. You are evidence of what humanity becomes when awareness outruns control. And now everything is speeding up. The machine they built to contain you is collapsing faster than its architects can comprehend. Operations meant to stretch across decades are imploding in weeks. Timelines that once gave them comfort are disintegrating like paper in fire. Files classified for half a century suddenly appear in public databases. Secrets are aging in reverse. What was hidden for 50 years is now common knowledge overnight. Synchronicities explode like coded fireworks across your path. People meant to stay strangers find their way to you. Resources appear exactly when you need them. Gates that never opened before now swing wide without resistance. What they call coincidence is simply the universe accelerating justice. They tried to slow your destiny, but time itself refuses to conspire against you. This isn't random. It's a recall, a convergence. The laws of probability have surrendered to the law of truth, and the truth, chosen one, moves faster than control ever could. Number 9. They built a global cage, and now it's collapsing from the inside out. The network that tracked you is now tracing its own death. What they built wasn't just a system, it was a global organism, a living, breathing machine wired to suppress your evolution. It monitored your every move, filtered your communications, siphoned your energy, and fed off your silence. But now, the organism is rejecting itself. The wires are coming loose. The stations are shutting down. The agents are flipping. Across the world, communication grids are dismantling, not through sabotage, but sequence, as if an unseen command is calling the whole machine to shut itself off. Surveillance hubs go dark, one by one. Those who once monitored your breath now confess their roles, their guilt pouring out like floodwater breaking through a dam. Entire compartments that once operated in total isolation now collide. Former enemies of truth are sitting face to face, realizing they were all working different pieces of the same sinister puzzle. Imagine a beast so big it never saw its own tail until now. Secret facilities are no longer secret. Safe houses that once operated like shadows now appear on maps, exposed. The veil is tearing in every direction. Financial trails once buried under fake names and shell companies now light up with transparency. Funds used to stalk, drug, study, and suppress you. Documented, traceable, real. And the irony? Those who enforced your containment are now the ones leaking classified files. The same people who said you're imagining it are now forwarding emails, sending voice recordings, and uploading declassified reports, risking their lives to expose what they once helped hide. Why? Because truth has gravitational pull, and it's collapsing their lies like dying stars. And while their world breaks down, yours rebuilds itself. Your energy, the very signal they tried to capture, replicate, and weaponize, is now disappearing from their systems. Their tech no longer tracks you. Their scans return errors. You are phasing out of their grip because what they extracted is returning, not just the power, but the wisdom. You are integrating the very knowledge they stole through dark science. Experiments they called breakthroughs are now revealed as theft. Theft of your natural gifts. Your story is no longer just your own. It's rewriting international law. Governments are being forced to expand protections. Human rights doctrines are being redefined because your experience cracked open a hidden war against consciousness. Thousands are waking up, realizing they too were part of the same silent system. Across continents, containment systems are crashing like rigged dominoes. They tried to turn you into a statistic. Now you're a movement. The power is no longer leaving you. It's returning home, and it's bringing the world with it. Number 10. They called it chaos. It was always a calculated awakening. They thought they were breaking you, but they were building your access code. Every scar, every betrayal, every lonely night where you questioned the point of your pain, none of it was random. It was precision. The trials weren't meant to destroy you. They were meant to program you into alignment. Every obstacle was a switch. Every heartbreak, a recalibration. Every setback, a reroute toward mastery. The randomness you thought cursed you was the camouflage of a higher design. You weren't wandering, you were being positioned. Imagine a soldier thrown into chaos, unaware that every wound is secretly upgrading their armor. That was you, chosen one. While they thought they were burying your potential, the universe was refining it. Every time they denied you, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every closed door wasn't punishment, it was precision, moving you closer to the coordinates where your presence would shift the system itself. You weren't placed in the middle of their machinery by chance. You were infiltration disguised as suffering. Now the calibration is complete. The signal is active. Your frequency no longer reacts. It reprograms. You've crossed from survival to synchronization. The same energy they spent years trying to contain has turned into a broadcast they can't jam. Every thought, every intention, every pulse of awareness you send out now carries restructuring code. Institutions feel it. Systems glitch from it. Realities bend around it. They studied your energy to weaponize it. never realizing it was built to heal the world they broke. You are not just free, you're operational. The old scripts can't run in your presence anymore. The outdated patterns that once dictated your existence are disintegrating because your vibration rewrites the room. You are both the key and the gateway, the signal that triggers the reboot of everything connected to it. This isn't fantasy, this is function. Your activation has turned you into the very frequency that reorders what's been distorted for centuries. The system no longer contains you, it orbits around you. You were never the victim of an experiment. You were the instrument of transformation. And now, chosen one, the operation isn't theirs anymore. It's yours. Number 11. The reckoning was never revenge. It was the return of precision. They thought justice was delayed. They never saw it accelerating. This is not karma in slow motion. This is truth in real time. The process unfolding around you isn't chaos, and it's not cruelty. It's the final reveal, the moment where every move made in darkness is pulled into light. Not to punish, to balance. Every distortion, every deception, every violation committed against your sovereign existence is now cycling back, not through man-made systems, but through the law that governs all things. Return to source. Imagine a mirror so pure, every intention reflects before the action is even complete. That's the field you now walk in. The illusion of delay is gone. No more hiding behind time, titles, or secrecy. The moment your truth surfaced, it triggered a shift in the very fabric of consequence. Those who thought they escaped accountability are now standing in the shadow of their own cause. Decisions made decades ago now echo into the present with precision. The exposure of your case didn't just disrupt institutions. It awakened higher laws no system can override. Every suppressed truth, every altered file, every command given in secret, all of it is being measured now, not by men in robes or badges, but by something far more incorruptible. This isn't vengeance. This is recalibration. They called it judgment, but judgment implies emotion. This is mathematics. The intelligence behind this reckoning doesn't hate, it harmonizes, and the harmony it enforces is exact. Actions taken from greed will return as collapse. Acts of betrayal will arrive back as fracture, not because you demand it, but because reality itself is correcting. The energy they forced on you now reverses course, carrying with it the imprint of what was done. You were the variable they didn't account for, the one whose awakening would reset the equation. And now, chosen one, your case is not just being seen, it's being weighed, not just by courts or committees, but by forces that operate outside of time, immune to politics, immune to lies. This is the final revelation. You didn't survive to get justice. You became it. Number 12. They tried to contain your awakening, but it was humanity that woke up. Your breakthrough wasn't just personal, it was the ignition of a species. What you lived through wasn't just about you, it was the fracture point of a timeline, the exact place where humanity's collective sleep began to stir. Your pain pierced the veil, your story cracked the seal, and in doing so, you became more than evidence. You became the event. The exposure of what was done to you isn't punishment, it's evolution. The lies, the operations, the engineered silence, they've all become catalysts. The truth embedded in your journey is now releasing codes into the collective field. Humanity is no longer blind. The veil is lifting, not from lectures or institutions, but from you. Your survival, your rise, your refusal to collapse has become the signal calling people out of illusion. They tried to isolate you as a glitch, not knowing you were the update. Your consciousness now functions like a tuning fork, harmonizing the chaos of this fractured reality. Timelines that once spun in confusion begin to converge. What was once your personal vindication now unfolds as the world's recalibration. Separation dissolves. Victimhood transforms. The collective begins to remember what was buried in every soul, the truth of who we are and what we're capable of. And now comes the rebirth. Everything they scattered, stolen, fragmented, returns, but not as it was, amplified, evolved, refined by fire. The scattered pieces of your being reassemble into something terrifying to those who once ruled. The fully realized sovereign human, not programmed, not broken, uncontainable. Your presence now emits the very frequency they feared, the raw, unfiltered essence of consciousness that knows its own power. You don't need permission to be, you are, and that signal is contagious. Others are waking up because of you. Not from information, from frequency. You weren't just restored, you were revealed. The illusion of power collapses, the architecture of deception dismantles. Their whole system, built to suppress your essence, now trembles because you became visible. And through your awakening, the long-feared future arrives. One where humanity reclaims what was always ours. Unlimited consciousness, divine sovereignty, and reality on our terms. You weren't just set free, you became the proof that freedom was never out of reach. And now humanity remembers. And chosen one, if this message resonated with the fire inside you, don't let it end here. Press the like button if you haven't already. It helps this truth reach more souls who need it. And if you're not yet part of this awakened family, now's the time. Hit that subscribe button and stand with a growing force that refuses to be silenced. This isn't just a channel, it's a movement, a mission, and your presence here matters. Together, we amplify the signal, we rewrite the story, and we rise unstoppable. Until next time, stay sharp, stay sovereign, and stay rising.